Howdy all of you delicious people, I'm here today to view Quantum Leap Season 1, Episode 2. So the one thing that I've started to notice per this second episode is, like, from the original show, we would have Sam who would leap into somebody, and not every single time it would have to be him leaping into someone just to save himself or to make some decision for himself. There are also certain times where Sam would go on and need to do something for another person as well as himself, and that would, of course, change that person's life forever. And so it seems that in these leaps, we start to realize that Song is not only just trying to do something to protect himself, to figure out a way for him to just be able to leap, but Song is kind of defying people and just be like, well, no, like, I want to get the best out of this leap possible. And so now it's not just about me, like, it's about other people, and it's about doing what Song thinks is to be uh, best for best for the leap, uh, and also to be best for the person that he goes on and gets tied to via this episode. So now that I've said all that, so Atlantis, this is the title of this episode. Come to find out through a Google search, Atlantis, of course, was a space shuttle that was to be put out into space in 1985, supposedly. And immediately when I look at the beginning of this episode, it says 1998. I'm like, I guess, like, we really just can't have any, like, real, like, historical ties here with the show. Like, it just has to be its own thing. And so I'm like, whatever. Like, I am just waiting for a legitimate historical tie in the show, so someone could go on and read this in a book somewhere, or want to be fascinated and Google search it, or something along those lines, so that way there is some education from a Quantum Leap show, because we have a whole week to go on and wait for another one of these episodes to come out. So it makes all the sense in the world to have some, like, historical tie that people can look up and spend time on and learn about, because they have another week before another one of these episodes pop out. So for this episode, we have Song in space. So we, of course, in this episode have to have a bunch of science-y jargon because it's outer space. And so I can go on and give some leeway to that, because I'm like, like, we've already gone on to, like, a whole first episode where they're saying sciencey words. I'm like, blah. But now it seems that we go on and have to have these sciencey words because there's technical terms for all these things, like payload and cargo bay doors and this and that. And I'm just like, okay, whatever. At least all these things have a name. So funny enough, if I was to go on and complain about kind of the behind the leap scenes from the first episodes, we go on and have episode 2 that has, like, behind the leap scenes that have zero payout whatsoever. Or characters are just like, oh yeah, like, it looks like this thing has a password. We can't get into it. We can't crack into it. Man, does that suck. It's a whole entire episode where people are realizing that it's like, oh man, like, passcodes and all these man, like, I wish that this thing wasn't encrypted. Really? And then come to find out by the end of the behind the leap scenes, I'm assuming that there was going to be some payout by the end of it. And the only real thing that we got was just like, oh, well, it seems that we find um, this kind of connectional visual piece that is to tell us that uh, there's a certain time in a year or whatever that it seems that uh, we have to have our character go into at some point. And maybe that, of course, may be what Song was to go on and do to implement this algorithm like thing and then leap into what he is to leap into, because Song, of course, was to possibly have figured it out how to possibly retrieve Sam, because that's what I'm assuming that whole thing is leading up to. Because naturally, I'm like, man, they need to get something to have like some kind of real, uh, kind of selling point of the show beyond just like, well, hey, like here's a picture of Al and here's a hologram of Sam. Isn't that great? There's like, and I think there's some people that are on the fence of whether or not even Sam is going to get back onto this show. And like for me, I would assume that like I don't think that they're gonna like do a whole story arc with Sam in it. I think it's gonna be like a one-off episode and then call it a day. Wouldn't it still be cool though if like Sam was to still not go on and have them retrieve him? That would be kind of cool. Like to just go on and like still have like Sam still leaping. But then again, like if Sam's character would get like actually incorporated in the show, like fully incorporated, that would be fun too. Um, but I don't know. We'll figure that out when we get to it. So now that I've been gabbing for far too long about this episode, let's try to go on and talk about what legitimately happens within this episode. So Addison is to be combing over her place to be very suspicious about Song, that maybe Song all along has had this evil plan of his that is now working in full effect without Sam even realizing it because amnesia. So Addison is going on and combing through her place and his, because technically they're engaged. And so Addison is to have come up with this flash drive that is to probably lead us to Bubkiss Nowhere. And so we also have Magic and Jen, who is to go on and try to track down Al's wife. That is to also help us go on to find Janice, who of course is Al's daughter. And so we, of course, have all of this kind of lead to nowhere for the behind the scenes leaping thing. But now let's go on and talk about Song and his mission. So, Song all of a sudden is to be lifting off on the spacecraft, and so we don't have Song going on between leaps and saying, oh boy. Like, I'm assuming he says, I'm assuming he says, oh crap. And they just censor it out every time. Or he just says, oh. I'm sorry, like, it should just be, oh boy. Why can't it be? Why do they have to shift it or change it or whatever? It should just be, oh boy, every single time. I like continuity between the other show, but still, I think oh boy still works. But so, Song is to be on this space shuttle, and so come to find out, we of course have Commander Jim Reynolds, and we also have Samantha Stratton, who it seems both of these characters are kind of butting heads because, of course, Samantha is to be this pilot, but the commander, of course, is to kind of want the last word. But it seems that we find in this episode that, like, there are 4 people on this space shuttle, and they have to all make decisions together rather than going on and like just saying, well, like since this guy's in charge, what he says goes. So we have a mission here where it seems that at first uh, we have the guy whose song is leaping into, who of course is David, and it seems that his life is at jeopardy. And so we naturally assume that it's like, okay, well, as soon as Song is to go on and get this guy like safe, then like he'll just leap, and then we'll have two leaps in one episode. That seems great. Even though that just seems kind of like flimsy, like to just like, man, we're going to spend all this money just to like do this kind of half leap thing. But also, like, could you imagine how much money they probably had to spend to blow here on this kind of episode? But so, Song, it seems, once he goes on to try and protect his own leaping person, come to find out that ends up just making matters worse. So it seems that by the end of this, we have to come on to have a way of Song, as well as a number of other people, but mostly just Song, because he's the leaper. We have to have him go on and figure out how to exactly save the day. And so, with that said, I think it's about that time to just double five at this bad boy up, because I think it's about that time to just go on into the double five time territory. Try to be as vague as possible, because otherwise I don't have much to say within spoilers, because it's about that time yet again to go in spoiler time. It's about that time to spoil this episode. Before you go, or whichever, let me know how you've been feeling about this new Quantum Leap episode, where you could be very hesitant about watching this show, or if you're thinking like, well, yeah, like maybe they're going to find their groove and they're going to find their thing, and I'm going to start enjoying the show. I would go on and say that this second episode I liked much more than the first, because it's like it's slowed down. It's to go on and give me a much more theme that I can enjoy more. I think where they're going for the third episode, I think I'm going to like that a lot more than this one. So I think over time this show may get better, but there was just that really blip of hesitation for that first shot where I was like, God, this show was awful. And so, like, I would say that this episode right now, like, it's a bad episode, but there's, like, it's watchable. Like, it's something that I would go on and tell people to watch, especially after going and watching that first episode and just being like, what the nah. So, with that said, let's go on and let's go into spoilers about this one. So, I'm gonna really just try to just bash out all the side crap, all the secondary character stuff, because I really don't care about that, and so I really would rather focus on the leaping part to get that whole story out, because it's a lot more interesting than any of that side bullshit that like really goes nowhere in this episode. So we have Addison in this episode who is combing through Song's place, as well as I'm assuming hers. So Ian ends up walking in on Addison as she has gone on to tear through her place. And so we have Addison who is to like say that like if it seems that Song might have some evil plan in place, then we should really try to like comb through and see if we could find something that is to possibly implement Song in to really understanding what side he's on. So Addison ends up finding this flash drive, and so Addison goes on and gives this to Ian, and Ian, of course, to put this in, like, okay, let's see what's on here. and password protected. And so Addison's like, well, you can break through this, right? Like, aren't you a hacker? And so Ian's like, well, yeah, but that's going to go on and take some time. So we find out later, I guess, Ian is to get this flash drive unlocked and is to be given this hard drive. And so Jen is going on and speaking with Ian about how, because Jen is to realize that Ian is doing something shifty. And so we have Jen that is to say to Ian, it's like, well, hey, like, with all of what's going on right now, I think we all really need to be on the same page. We all need to be working together. Like, I think since Song was originally the glue for our team, now we have to go on and we have to become the glue. And so Ian's like, well, what are you really getting at here? It's like, come on, like, get to the point here. And so Jen is like, yeah, I saw the hard drive that you just, like, were given. And so it's like, am I gonna need to go on and figure out what you took? Or so come to find out, like, really they end up kind of figuring things out. And so Jen and Magic end up going on to talk to Janice's mother, who of course is Beth Calavici. And so Magic ends up going to speak with Beth, and when the two of them are talking about Al and about the past, and that we of course have Magic that is trying to, like, ask if Beth has seen her daughter or talked to her in a while, and it seems that there is, like, nothing that Beth can really give Magic here, but just kind of talking about Al, talking about the past. So after it seems that Magic is to be done talking with Beth, Beth goes on and then turns around and calls Janice to try to get a hold of her. And so come to find out, Magic is to have Jen tell her this. And it's like, okay, like, we now know Janice's phone number, and we now know where to find her. So both Magic and Jen make their way to this home, and Magic, it seems, is to easily just be able to unlock this door and come on into Janice's place. I'm like, wow, like, for an evil doer, for a villainous character, man, does she just, like, just leave your door unlocked. Hey guys, I'll put the key under the rug, because I know you're gonna just break into my place anyways. But so, and here's the thing: if we had, like, Janice, who was, like, briefly in the pilot episode where she was to find this answer, we kind of again briefly use her in this episode, as both Jen and Magic are making their way into this secret basement that Magic ends up just quickly finding out, as if he immediately knows what room to have gone into, and he knew that there would be a secret thing under this rug, because I guess if you have to have, like, the oldest trick in the book, it is to be like, hey, let's look under every rug because there's got to be some basement door. So Magic and Jen make their way down to this basement, and Magic is to go on to take a screenshot from his phone, like, hey, like, there's some scientific scribblings upon this board. I wonder what it'll pay out to be. So all of a sudden we have, of course, Janice, who is to realize that both Jen and Magic have kind of gotten into this place. And so now Janice is going on and doing what a traditional hacker would go on and do when they're found out, is they would just burn everything. So all of a sudden, slowly but surely, this this basement is starting to like be set ablaze slowly but surely. And so Jen is to be taking all the time in the world to get this hard drive, because Jen is to notice that there is to be a certain kind of setup that Jen could kind of unhinge this one thing to grab this one hard drive, so she could scramble out of here with this hard drive that was so worth it for them to grab. So, come to find out, Ian, with all of his stuff and all of his hacking and all the things that are to go on, and finally tell us what would the whole point with all of these things that they were doing. So, come to find out, there is to have been this whole like 3D mapping thing on this screen that is to go on and tell us that there seems to be some key algorithm and some connection to possibly tell us that this character needs to go on and go back to a certain time period, which I'm assuming may be the key to finding out where Sam had leaped last, to try and connect to him, to say it's like, well, hey, Sam, like, we're gonna like reel you in, because maybe we finally had a person who throughout these years was finally working on it to try and bring Sam home. And wouldn't it be amazing if the whole entire time it was Al, even when like uh the whole program was abandoned, Al was still working hard to try and get Sam back. Years trying to figure out who to go on and ask, and figure out the science angle of it to try to get Sam back. And so that would be like a cool way to like have Al go on and like was to have wanted his friend to come back all these years later. And so that would be like a cool way to just like, well, yeah, like uh, giving homage to a character who, of course, has passed away, but it's to be like, well, yeah, he was the key to all of this. And so that would be great. And so now that we've covered all of that stuff, let's cover the leap stuff. You know, the thing that is actually important in the show, the leap part? Because it is, but I didn't focus on it. So we, of course, have Song, who is to leap into this astronaut. And so Song is desperately telling these guys, hey, no, 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 don't lift off. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know about space travel. And so this space shuttle is lifting off, and there's nothing Song could do. And so it seems that they had a successful liftoff. We, of course, have both Commander Jim Reynolds and Samantha Stratton, who are going on and talking about the liftoff and everything like that. And that Samantha has done this like hundreds of times in a flight simulator, and it's just like the same old kind of thing. So, like, really showcasing to us that both the Commander and Samantha like have had a long history together, and like they're like teacher and student kind of thing, and that the Commander has always kind of been under Samantha's wing to like teach her how to do all of this. So we have Samantha, who ends up turning to David, as David is to kind of look on in his reflection, seeing that he is this David guy. So we immediately have Song, who is desperately asking Addison, where are you? Like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, if I accidentally hit 12 buttons, will this ship explode? I don't know, because I don't know what I'm doing. So we have Samantha that is asking David, it's like, well, hey, like, are you okay? And David's like, yeah, I just need to go to the bathroom. And so we have David that makes, or Song that makes his way to the bathroom, and he's just holding out in the bathroom because like he's very afraid that if he goes out there then they'll make him do something and he doesn't know what to do. So while Song is in the bathroom waiting for Addison to show up, Addison then shows up. What if it's like the one time where Song needs to immediately leap into somebody and he doesn't know what he's doing and he ends up killing somebody by accident, and like that's what ends up like really effing up the whole entire leap, was the one thing that Song did when he immediately leaps into somebody and he just knee jerk does something by accident, and that makes a huge rip in the time period of like, oh my god, you just went on and you murdered somebody, and how could you? And so, and then come to find out like they could do something creative, like come to and realizing that Song was not the person that killed that person, that it was actually some other thing, that actually his bullet was to land into this wall instead of him excuse me, instead of him going on and actually killing somebody. They could do something like creative, like a CSI thing that might not be for the time period, but this guy just figured it out because they've advanced more in the number of years with like detective knowledge. Anyways, so we go on into this episode, and so Samantha ends up showing up, and Addison is telling Song that he, of course, is inside David Tamara, and we have Song who is to go on and be like, "Oh my god, like I remember about David because I idolized him. I always wanted to become an astronaut myself, and like he was this and I was that, and like I just kind of idolized him, and like of course, like whoever you're leaping into, like you need to know everything about him for whatever goofy reason. Because if in the first episode they knew jack crap nothing about the first guy they were leaping into, now it seems in this episode, all of a sudden miraculously, yeah, I know everything about this guy. Great! So, Song, it seems, is going to need Addison for help because he doesn't know what he's doing. And the interesting thing also is Addison was to talk to the group before she was to go on and help Song on his leap. And they were telling Addison maybe it's in the best interest for Addison to not go on and jog Song's memory, because there may be a moment where Song is to remember everything, and he may, of course, be like the bad guy here, and like that gives us all the reason for Addison to possibly not give Song any help with his memory. And so it's like, okay, like at least they can like justify the amnesia, just like, okay, now that he has this could actually be a benefit to the story, and here's how, which I actually liked that. So Song, it seems, is to really want to press Addison for information, as she is to have a wedding ring on, and Song is like, oh, like when's the date, and or she has an engagement ring on, and so Song is like, well, hey, when's the date? And Addison's like, well, 6 months or 6 weeks from now or something like that, or like X number of quite a bit of time from now. And Song is just like, well, like hopefully I'm gonna be there. And Addison's like, well, I hope you're gonna be there too, because of course Addison does not break it to Song that it's like, well, yeah, you're my lover, so you better be. So Song Song is to realize that the reasoning for them wanting to not jog his memory uh, is because it's like, well, like you guys don't know who I really am right now. And so Song is to understand like why Addison is trying to prevent him from getting his memory back, and like we don't have this like in the same scene, but we have it somewhere in this episode. And Song agrees that it's okay that these guys aren't trying to jog his memory. Um, Even though Song was to ask Addison, it's like, well, like, aren't you guys gonna like trigger some kind of like childhood thing to have me like remember something? Like, of course, I was to go on and watch this YouTube thing yesterday, where it was Talkville and John Schneider was on that episode, and we had a moment where John was to mention like a thing where he says like you're the horse, and so like really John then had to explain that at one point that uh, that John had to like have this horse on one day of set where everybody was trying to treat him like a god because like they didn't want to scare him, they wanted to continue to use this horse for this thing, so they really were like buttering this horse up. And finally we had we had John who explains that it's like, well, like the main character of the show should honestly become that horse where everybody is like really like looking at him and like looking at him as like yeah, we need this character, we desperately need this character, and so like we're going to treat him like as a god, so he'll and so like to have that kind of one like memory thing that kind of connects and dominoes and whatever's so like I thought that was like that should be one thing that they should probably do here, to just have like one little thing that might jog some memory, or I'm assuming within the episodes it's going to play out that way. It's going to be like Born Identity, or it's going to be like regarding Henry in some ways, with the exclusion of like, excuse me, of this guy not needing to have to like learn everything from scratch again. It's just like the memory of it all, that he did it at some point. So so the thing of this mission is we have Song, who is to go on and have him go on this spacewalk, is how it seems in this episode Song dies. And so Song is just like, oh, okay, well, all I need to do is not go outside and I can leap. So immediately when Song goes out there with the help of Addison, we then find out that there is to have been some malfunctioning with the cargo bay doors, and that there is like this payload that needs to be like put out of this space shuttle, but it seems that there are some problems with getting this payload out of this cargo bay. So they immediately go on and look at Song or David to say, it's like, hey David, are you ready to do a spacewalk? Because we need to get this payload out. Like this is the whole mission. That's the reason why we're here. So like we end up having Song, who is to have to like figure out a way to manually release this payload so it can go out into space, whatever this thing is. So come to find out, the way Song is to die is that some debris, some space debris, is to be floating into space and is to try to kill him. So come to find out, we have Song and the astronauts that are on a timed like mission, because it seems that somehow they are to have heavily lost oxygen, to where it seems that they only have 6 hours of oxygen left in their shuttle. So they need to go on and like figure out a way to do everything quickly. And so Song is to go on and put on his spacewalk suit, and we of course have Max, who is telling Song, it's like, well, hey, like we need to go through protocol to make sure everything, all the bells and whistles are working on this equipment. And Song is like, how long is that going to take? And he's like, 20 minutes. And Song is like, no, like let's just have me go out there and just like save some time, because considering they're on a 6 hour time crunch, and as well also uh Song is supposed to get hit with debris within the next 90 minutes. And so Song is just like, yeah, like I think I'm just going to try to cut as much corners as I can. So Song goes out there and is to release the payload, but then come to find out the debris ends up becoming way earlier than they knew about. So now Song is having to brace for impact as this debris is coming, and come to find out, Song ends up getting saved. And from kind of knowing about this debris early on. So it seems that now Song is naturally assuming, okay, like I can leap now, like this is all done right, and like I'm done with this. And Addison's like, oh no, like it looks like we're not done. Come to find out, the debris that was supposed to hit Song, because of course this plays out this way, the one piece of debris that hit Song instead of this spacecraft was to just kill Song and not lead to the ship and everyone on the crew dying afterwards. But now it seems that Song was to dodge this debris. The debris hits a part of this ship that is to conflict with their heat shields, and now Song and the rest of the crew cannot go back and re-enter into Earth's atmosphere, or they will die. Their space shuttle will like disintegrate and burn up, and will like everyone will die. So now we have a number of hours for these guys to like figure this out. And so it seems that there is some like Russian spaceship satellite thing in space. And so their like Song's idea is to have them try to make their way to that Russian satellite spaceport, whatever, to ask them for help. So it seems that Song is throwing this out there, and it seems that Samantha is on board because we, of course, have this to be a 2-on-1 situation, because Commander Jim Reynolds is to, of course, had been in command, but he ends up getting concussed, and he ends up getting knocked out. And so they end up kind of just putting him off to the side, and he has like a little boo-boo on his head. So it seems that both Song and Samantha are coming up with this option, and Max is like, no, I think we should just try to re-enter Earth's atmosphere and die. That's Max doesn't realize that, but it's going to happen if they do it that way. So we have Addison, who is stating that it's an 87% chance that they're going to go on, and they're going to be able to make it to this place and it all work out. Plus, like, they have a thing about percentages also in this episode, where Addison is to also, when Song is to leap by the end of this episode, because spoilers, everybody, like, Song is going to leap in every episode. He's going to correct whatever he needs to do and leap. Wouldn't that be like a real like middle finger if they end up having to do like a two-parter and stretch an episode to just be like, oh my god, is he gonna make it out alive? Because of course he is. Of course he will. Like, of course he's going to be able to leap. But like that would be the real like ticking off thing, is if they like try to like leave it to be like, well, is he gonna leap this time around? It seems like this seems to be impossible odds, and I don't think he can be able to leap this time. And then that's how like they end this season or something like that. That would be like, wow. That would probably tick a lot of people off. So, but I'm assuming that's probably how they're gonna do it at some point. But so, how we we have them going with the plan of like, okay, we're gonna go to this Russian like spaceport slash uh, uh whatever it is out there. So it seems by the time that they're planning this, all of a sudden the commander comes to, and he's just like, well, hey, like I'm going with Max's plan. Let's just re-enter. And now all of a sudden we have to have like this stretching of conflict. So we have Song, Commander, and Max who are all like kind of just plotting to re-enter Earth's atmosphere, and Song ends up going and finding Samantha, who is to try to go on and lock both Max and Commander out, so that way she herself can go on and get court-martialed and do the other plan, uh, and so that way she can get what she wants. And so Samantha is pushing Song to go back with the other guys, and so that way we of course can have a Song with plausible deniability. She's like, "Oh, I was just up here. I don't know what she was planning. I was just up here doing this." So instead, Song, instead of waiting to see what Samantha does, Song instead is to talk to the commander and convince him to go with what both him and Samantha had planned. To just say, it's like, well, hey, like, you've known, of course, Samantha for a very long time, right? Like, you've trained by her, you trust her, and like, you're just gonna go against her plan? Like, you're just gonna like defy her now, after like you guys have been like through everything for so long? And so, because we've also had Samantha that is to have always said that the commander guy was to always be right about things, and how he would always go on and tell Samantha, it's like, I told you, how he would always be right, and 99 out of 99.9% of the time, like, this guy would be right. But it seems that this time around we have Samantha who is to possibly be right this time around. So the commander is convinced, so it's like, okay, like, Song somehow magically convinced me. As we even have Addison that was to tell Song, it's like, what are you doing? Like, why are you trying to convince this guy? Like, it's gonna work out anyways. And Sam is just like, no, like, I'm gonna go on, and since I was tied to Samantha for this episode, like, me and her, like, I'm gonna like really uh like bring this home to like to have everybody on the same page, the same table, because of course we also had Jen, who is to talk to Ian via this episode, to just like, well, hey, we all need to be on the same page, the same thing. We need to be the glue here, and like, you're going on and doing your own thing, as well as it seems that Addison was going on and doing her own thing. So that somehow they really need to like connect all those guys. Uh, so they make it to the space station. Let's just say, to just be very vague, because I didn't remember what the actual name of the space station was, anyways. So it seems that they're trying to reach them on the radio, and they're getting nothing. They're getting bupkis. So the we have again where Song is have to go on another spacewalk. We also had in this episode where consistently Addison is to take in that they are in outer space, and Addison is telling Song, it's like, well, hey, how about you just enjoy this moment, because you're never gonna get this again. And so Addison and both Song are like, yeah, like we're in space. So because Song has to go on and have this antenna to try to reach out to these Russians. And so it seems that they cannot get the Russians, and Song immediately understands why that is. And supposedly, Song is to understand that these guys are probably to all be asleep in the space station. So he's going to have to go on and just bang around to hope that these guys are to be awake. You would think that possibly like one person would still be awake at all times, but maybe not. So Song decides that he's going to unhook himself from this cargo bay, and he is just going to shoot out. Luckily, I guess he was very accurate with his projectile way about shooting out, or otherwise he would have completely missed this whole space station, and he would have just been like, okay, well, like, you're gonna die into space. So Song, it seems, is to shoot out to this space station, and he ends up luckily like smacking against a couple things, but then grabs on to this one thing to then try to be knocking on this door, like, hey, help, help us. And so it seems that some Russian cosmonaut goes on and just to look in this window, like, hey, that. So, Song, of course, is to tell the rest of the astronauts, like, well, hey, like, I went on and I figured it out. Like, we're all saved. And they're like, yay, woo, he did it. And so now it seems that we, of course, have Song who is asking Addison. It's like, well, hey, like, do you think I'm going to go back to 2022 now? Do you think I'm going to leave back home? And we have Addison who's like, well, it's a 50-50 shot, and that we could figure it out, or maybe we won't. And so Song is like, well, I hope you guys do. I hope you guys figure it out. So Song ends up going on to leap and comes to find out that he is leaping into a body of a boxer, where all of a sudden Sam is to have like his arms down on the ground, and this coach is like telling this guy, like, hey, what are you doing? Like, put your hands up, block yourself. And so all of a sudden this kid comes in and pa, and I'm assuming he knocks Song right out. And so it's like, oh boy. And then that's how the episode just kind of ends. So with that said, I hope that covers most of this episode. Let me know in the comments below if there's something that I forgot about. There's probably little details, or there's probably little this and little that. We also had it where Sam was to go on and say to the commander, it's like, well, I told you so. Like, I told you I was right. And maybe that'll start getting the pattern of her at some point going on and being more right than the commander is. Plus also, like, Song was to justify to the commander, like, well, hey man, like, I get it that you have your own opinion, but like, you're also concussed, like, you just had this injury, so maybe you're not thinking clearly, like, maybe you're emotionally compromised. And so this is just like the reboot Star Trek thing all over again, where the commander is now Spock and Kirk has to kind of reel him in, just like, I'm sorry, sir, but you're emotionally compromised. You just watched Vulcan die. Like, it's time for you to go on and not have the final say here. So yeah, so I think I'm just gonna go on and get out of here. Plus, this is also, oh my god, almost 50 minutes, and it was 42 minutes episode. So I'm gonna get out of here. Bye, everybody. Goodbye, everybody.